Jimmy, if I may start with you, how did you and Richard get the Communards together?
Well, Richard and I have known each other for about 3.5 years, 4 years, and Richard started to do some work with us being Bronski Beat at the time, playing saxophone and some live stuff. And then in his spare time, Richard and I started to write material and write songs. And then at the same time, I was in the process of leaving Bronski Beat. And so then we just started to sort of like write more songs. And then one day we just decided to do something live. And we did. And then we formed the Communards. And then we started making records. Didn't we?
Yep, sure did.
So it was more than just being friends, really. It's when you actually tried writing together, it gelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It really gelled.
What was the most difficult thing, obviously, for you to get the songwriting together, having been used to writing with the other people in other bands?
It was nothing difficult. This time it was much easier because Richard was much more sensitive to picking things up and to sort of like, let's say, catching an idea really quickly and then just working on it and things like that. And also because he can write music too, it's a lot easier. So it wasn't anything difficult. It was actually easier and much more fun.
I think there's two of us doing it this time, and it's much easier to do things with two people than with three.
Definitely,
people.
It's much easier to write with two rather than three.
As it transpired, once you've actually started releasing the singles, the first single, it was different from the usual stuff that you'd been accustomed to, or people that had been accustomed to from you in the Bronski Beat. Was that done intentionally?
Well, it was just the style that we developed.
There was a sort of a degree of that. I mean, we did think it important that we established ourselves as a different band and a different proposition.
But it was also just what we came up with.
Yeah, and also we felt it was the strongest song to lead with.
Yeah.
It was one we liked the most as a leading song, so...
And we thought it was quite ambitious because it's a really strange song. It's almost like something classical verging on something soulful, so it really does throw people, I think.
So that's why we did it.
It's a strange sound.
As with most of the material that was to emerge later on, there's been quite a lot of classical arrangements in your stuff, so I think that supposedly was the part of the format of what the Communards was going to take shape in.
Yeah, it sort of turned out that way, really. A lot of this wasn't sort of planned or anything. A lot of it came up in the course of recording, and in the course of playing live as well was a particular kind of sound. And also the kind of people we wanted to work with as well. That sort of dictated to a large extent the kind of sound. But it's not by no means the only stuff we do. I mean, we do sort of big dance production numbers as well. But we always like to sort of draw on different elements, and I think you should sort of try and pack as much as you can into a song and give people their money's worth, you know.
I mean, we know Jimmy obviously for his vocals, but do I gather then that you, the man, are solely responsible for the musical
part of it?
No,
not at all. I mean, I sort of play the things, but Jimmy's sort of got just as much input in that. I mean, I don't really want to work on my own. I don't want to work in isolation. I'd much rather work with Jimmy. And also, seeing as he's the one who's got to sing the song, it's important that it's a two-way thing.
Do you find that the more time goes, the more you become musically oriented yourself? Like
no.
playing, no?
Well, ignore what I just said.
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of like mess around quite a bit, and I can do things really simple, but then Richard can pick them up and make them much more like complex. He can sort of like make them. I mean, I could do something really simply, like a simple sort of like melody or something, then Richard can pick up on it and work on it.
That's how
things like that.
So how songs tends to happen is either one of us will come up with a phrase, maybe I'll come up with a piano phrase and Jimmy will come up with a vocal phrase, and it sort of grows from there in bits and bobs, and it's sort of, there's never sort of one way of doing it. It just tends to sort of start with just one little thing and sort of spread out into a song eventually.
So from the word go, really, it was understood what you wanted to do with the Communards, or was it improvisation as it came?
I think it progressed, didn't it? Because we just done it for fun in the beginning. It was just to pass the time, really, wasn't it? Well, from my point of view it was, but for Richard it was obviously different because he was sort of like, I think he was looking ahead more than me at the time, but at the time I was just like having a good time.
I think Jimmy was a bit, after sort of the success of Bronski Beat and everything, I think the last thing you really wanted to do was to sort of start, really planning the future of another band, really.
So I was just having good fun.
And as for me, I was just a complete novice, really. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. I had a few ideas, and a few ideas about what we wanted to do, the things which were important to us. But now I think we've got a much clearer picture.
I suppose also you intentionally toned down the pop stardom side of it.
But then I suppose, it's like if we had, it's all to do with the media, really. It's like we weren't such an instant success, so the media didn't make us into anything. They didn't make such a big noise about us, which we were really pleased about, really, because if we had sort of like had a successful single, like if You My World had been, like, say, a really successful hit, then I think it would have just been the whole same problem all over again, because it would have been so instant and so quick, and especially if Richard's sort of like just starting it would have just been too much.
Also, I think it's important that a band should build as well. I mean, with a new band like Bronski Beat, for instance, going in and the first ever record being a huge hit all over the world, is, to actually start at that level of success is an extremely difficult thing to sustain, particularly as everyone's having to adjust to their new lifestyles and their new careers and everything. It's always been an interest of ours, I think, to sort of build slowly and to build carefully. So we know what we're doing, so we've always got ideas, and so we can always sort of present something which is worthwhile and something interesting and original, and that we have some sort of pride about as well.
Now, Richard, you come from a jazz sort of background, don't you? You've got a jazz or classical background as well.
Sort of, yeah.
Would you say that is one of the reasons why, perhaps, obviously, one could hear that you could play on a record, and people will immediately take you seriously for what you're doing as well?
I've never really thought about it. I suppose so. I started off as a choir boy in a choir school. It was the Royal School of Church Music, quite ironically. And we used to sort of go and sing at occasions and, Christmas and big church services and things like that. And I sort of left that under a cloud. Well, first of all, my voice broke and I started playing. I was already playing the piano and the violin, and I sort of continued with them. And then I left there. I didn't enjoy it. It was a very sort of conservative, very traditional kind of education. So I left there, and then I went to drama school, and I did a lot of theatre music there. And through that I got interested in jazz. And when I came down to London, I sort of worked just for my own amusement, really, playing here and there. And then I worked some more in the theatre, and then I got involved in a few bands, and it was sort of, at the time I wasn't aware of any kind of direction, but looking back on it, it does seem to have been a kind of move in one way.
And it has helped in what you've been doing ever since in the Communards?
Oh yeah, very, because it gives you, if you are working, if you're working as a sort of paid musician in the commercial sector like that, you have to sort of be able to deliver the goods, and you do develop good technique and an ability to sort of deal with a problem quickly and things like that, which is useful. But at the same time, I was also able to sort of try and work on a particular style of my own as well, which is important.
Jimmy, everyone has pointed out that voice. When people talk about you, they talk about the voice. Now, your background is different to Richard's in a way, because you didn't come from a sort of classically trained vocalist, didn't you? You went into it by, just wanting to try it out. Is that correct?
I suppose so. I think so. It was just there. There's nothing much really else I can say about it. It was just there. I think
you're being very modest here.
But I'm not, because it is. It was just there. There's not much else I can say, really. It just happened. I think I was just lucky. Because I'm sure there's like lots of people who have got good voices. There must be tons of people with good voices who just sort of like spend the rest of their life not even knowing, because it's like something that they've never had the opportunity to come across. I was just lucky. I had the opportunity to come across it, and then realised it was there, so I've made the most of it. So I suppose I was quite lucky. I'm sure there's lots of people like that though, but they don't get the opportunity to come across it.
I think it came as a breath of fresh air with the sort of original falsetto singing, with the sort of music that you were blending it with, really.
Because usually such a high voice is always trained, so it always sounds really nice, but it's always sweet and it's always sort of like precise. Whereas because mine was untrained, it was really sort of like rough and pretty wild.
I can't think of another's voice quite like it. It is got a good, and not only is it in tune, not only is it loud, not only is it in the right places at the right time, but it has a particular quality to it which is quite unique, and I think is really sort of, it's a kind of voice that demands it's listened to.
Mm. So you got the band together, or really the two of you got together. Was there ever any thought of doing live work? I mean, when you went at a particular stage,
Yeah.
did you say we want to do work live?
Well, that's what we've always wanted to do. That's what we always concentrate on. I think we spend more time concentrating on live work than what we do on like studio work or sort of like promotion work. We spend more effort on that because I think it's more important. It's much more fun to play live than it is to go into a studio and record a record. Going into a studio is really boring.
I don't know, I quite enjoy it, but for very different reasons. You can't beat playing live though.
No.
It really makes you feel sort of like you're working, which is
I
good.
personally find studios really boring and dull. So it's like so much better to play live because it's like it's happening then and you're doing it all at the one time. It's like a studio process is good fun because you build something up and then eventually it's finished.
Yes.
But when you're playing live, you do it all there and then.
It's a very good. When we play live, there's 10 of us on stage, and it's great to sort of be part of a group of people, and you're all producing one thing. And when it goes well, it's a really good feeling.
It's good fun.
I was going to say, Jimmy, you always seem to do things in style. I mean, you went out of the Bronski Beat in style at the peak of, with I Feel Love, and there again, when you performed here in London and probably all over Europe, you did it in style with an all-female band.
No, you've got to get yourself noticed, haven't you? If you're going to do something, you may as well do it in style.
Obviously, the excuse is not that you couldn't find good male musicians, because there's plenty of them. Why did you particularly choose them?
Because that's the whole thing. It's always male musicians. You always get men in bands. It's always male musicians in bands. So women are just as good musicians and sometimes better musicians because they don't let their egos and they don't let their vanity come first. They concentrate more on playing their music and doing what they're doing and being emotional and expressive, and that's the most important thing about music. It's just actually really just plunging into it and then being expressive.
And also, I think they're much more fun to work with, which is really important on a tour when you're sort of living in and out of each other's pockets for weeks on end and sort of travelling all around everywhere. You have to get on with the people, and I find that it's much easier to get on working with women than it is with men for precisely those reasons. There's not so much of an ego thing, there's not so much of a competitive spirit about it. Everyone tends to relax and have a really good time.
And I do think there's very few men who are in bands who don't have this attitude and have this whole idea about what being a pop or rock star is all about, or what being in a pop or rock band is all about. They do sometimes really just fall nose first into like stereotypes and cliches, but the women that we work with, it's just not like that at all. They do it because that's what they want to do and they love doing it, and then they just enjoy themselves. It's great, and they're also really wicked, so we have a good screen.
Yeah, that's the most important.
We have a real wicked time.
I was going to say, I gather you had quite lots and lots of fun.
Yeah, we did.
We went to one of these this lighting guy called Famous. He's Irish. And what was it he said?
He'd just done a world tour with Def
so
Leppard.
funny.
And sort of Def Leppard, the sort of archetypal heavy metal band, and he said that we made Def Leppard look like nuns.
He said he just couldn't believe us. It was just so wild.
I've never, honestly, we did a sort of period in the UK and then a period in France, and after that I've never felt so tired or dissolute in my whole life.
We just have such a good fun time.
Yeah.
It's good fun.
It's great. And we're off again starting at the end of next month.
Beware of the quiet people.
Yeah.
So you were Devils on the Road, but yet musically it clicked. And you got them on the album?
No,
because we've done this in New York, so they all live in London.
Hopefully, we would like to use them in future, but the album was virtually recorded by the time we got the band together anyway.
Yeah.
So
everything was all planned out by the time we got the band together.
Mm. So, let's talk about the album now. It's simply titled The Communards, I believe.
Not even the.
Not even the,
It's
just Communards. How long did it take you to get the material written? I can see here that it was written last year.
Most of it was written in virtually a week, wasn't it? In one sort of period. We worked very hard.
That's cutting it.
No, if you think that period, we wrote
a couple of weeks. We did. I mean, we actually did do it in a couple of weeks.
Most of the songs were written in the period of a week.
Because we were just sort of like messing around every day, and we were just sort of like had all these ideas, and so we just put them all down.
We had the time free, and we were both sort of really anxious to work and all that, and so I guess we came out in a big blob. We tend to write like that. We tend to go through a period of writing a lot of material, and then we'll write just the odd one here and there, and then another sort of busy period.
And we tend to work on like maybe 3 or 4 at the same time as well.
Yeah.
With just the ideas. But at the moment it's just, we've got, I mean, we actually have enough material still to do another album, but it's just getting it all together because we don't have time, because we've been working on this and doing the tour and sort of promotion stuff. It's like difficult to get it all together, but we've actually got enough material there for another album. So.
And also we want to sort of try it out playing live with the band before we record it this time, just because the songs change so much when you do play live with them.
How do you react? I mean, you get the reaction from the public as to what they react to most.
As I said, I think if it's good, it's good, and you know on stage it's good, and they know.
I think there's this public conception that we're a pair of miserable gits. There really is. I mean, I think there's this idea that Richard and I are just a pair of misery guts, and all we ever go is like, oh, woe's me, everything's terrible. But it's like completely the opposite, really.
Yeah.
We never really worry about anything. I mean, worry is the last thing that's on our minds. I mean, a lot of people have actually been surprised about what we're like live. They don't, because it's like they're really impressed how much an atmosphere, especially a fun atmosphere, comes from the stage as well, and sort of like that we can sort of like throw it to the audience.
So how much was it hard work to do this album then?
It was hard work, wasn't it? There's one period over Christmas, Christmas and New Year we spent in New York working on the album. I think the way it gets hard is we started it and then we went away to do something else and we had sort of bits and bobs down and then we came back and we worked over the bulk of it over that period, and it was sort of trying to get from A to B, trying to get from just having the structure and a rhythm pattern down and actually sort of building up a song from there. That was where it was hard work, just as trying to imagine how it's going to sound, trying to sort of think of the sounds you want on it.
And also because the album is like a mixture of live recordings and sort of like recordings that are built up, and also then sort of like songs which are nearly all in clavier and things like that. So it's such a mixture. It was really difficult to decide what would actually be what and things like that. But then once we sort of worked all that out, it was really easy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just a case of working all that out, which tracks would be recorded live and things like that.
So it wasn't a question of never mind the album, where's the party all the time?
Oh no, I mean we concentrated a lot on this, but except Christmas.
Did you enjoy doing it?
It was great.
Yeah,
fun,
it was great.
But it was an experience because it was, especially like doing live things as well.
And I felt it was the first time I'd ever sort of worked on a whole album, the first time I'd ever done an album of my own as part of the Communards. So I found it very nerve-wracking as well, because you sort of go in and you've got 45 minutes of silence to fill up, and it's quite daunting to start with.
And I found it really exciting as well, because it's like I knew that I was working on this thing which there probably would be lots of people who are just waiting to start screaming, it just sounds like Bronski Beat, or it just sounds like, do you know what I mean? So it was quite a challenge as well to try and come up with something which was...
So you had that at the back of your
fresh.
mind, is that what you're saying?
So it was sort of like, it was something that sort of like kept me thinking about my approach to certain things and the way I would approach songs and things. So I think it worked quite well.
How much assistance did you get from the producer, Mike Thorne, and also the musicians?
Well, I mean, Mike's sort of role is absolutely crucial to this album. He works very, very hard and all that, and his contribution is at least as much as ours, really. But certainly, we write the material, but when it actually comes to recording it and all that...
He's just got the ability to sort of like sit and actually more or less hear how the song should sound when it's finished. And it's like he takes our stuff in its rough sort of like form and then he really smooths it out and just sort of like makes everything just slot in.
He puts it all into sort of... He makes
Shape.
it all into shape, yeah. And he's very good at that. He's very good to work with, full stop.
Great.
He's very sort of sympathetic and supportive and sensitive as well, so...
I think he's just a brilliant producer.
Yeah, he is. He's a great producer.
You will work with him in the future?
Yep.
The musicians that helped you on this album, are they also people that you ideally want to work with in the future, or is it people that Mike brought in?
Well, there are people who worked on Age of Consent. So like the same horn section.
In fact, we both worked with them before, most of them. haven't we?
Before, yeah. So everyone really on this album, apart from a few, it's like I've worked with since the very beginning, since I actually started singing more or less. So I mean, that's been quite good fun.
And Mike has sort of regular people who he uses a lot in New York, and he knows well, and they know him well, and it works together. It's nice. And there's a couple of people on it who, like Tony Gagne, who played double bass. He's a double bass player whose work I'd liked before I'd heard on. He played with Tom Waits on the Tom Waits album. And Jimmy Malin really needs no introduction. So.
He's just amazing. So
Excellent percussionist. Sarah Jane Morris, is that the girl you're having fun with on Lover Man?
Yeah, that's how they are with the mad.
It seems like you had fun doing quite a few tracks. There's duets here and there and snippets here and there.
Yeah. She's great fun. She's really good, and it's just really nice working with somebody else who's sort of like singing with somebody else.
And also, it's nice to have the contrast between Jimmy with a very high voice and then Sarah Jane with a very low voice. So it has an irony about it.
There is a track, I think it's called Heavens Above, I'm not sure. But who sings on that? Or
me. That's all of that's my voice.
That's the first time we're hearing you in a non-falsetto voice, is that correct?
On with the Communards material, yeah, but on Bronski Beat, Junk was in a lower register, one of the tracks on Age of Consent. But it's good. It's really just I hardly ever really sing in this register, but I just like to maybe like on the album I just thought it'd be good to just do like one song again, where it's like there was this voice in a really low register, because people sort of like, they don't know that it's me, and then when they find it, they just get really shocked. Because when we do this live, it's like people always think it's maybe Sarah Jane or June, but then they watch them and they don't see their mouth moving, and they see my mouth moving, so... And then afterwards some of them still say, was that you who was singing on that song? They never really sort of like believe it.
In fact, it's me singing on that song.
Yeah. I did mention the track Lover Man, and obviously, if one hears it very closely, you can hear how much fun you're having on it. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the theme of the album? I mean, because there is a couple which are, one could describe as being a bit sad. Reprise is, I think, one of them. What would you say? I mean,
it's just covered. I think it covers different moods.
I think that's what if there is a theme to the album, and I don't really think there is, but we wanted to sort of... we wanted it to be an emotional album, and to sort of...
But
to
different
sort of
emotions.
show all sorts of sort of happiness and sadness and
Extreme
bubble,
emotions.
and to try to sort of really express something of how we feel more than anything else, and of how we think it's very important that our music's emotional, and that we put into it a real genuine feeling, as something sincere, and something maybe even if it's rough or something like that. I think it's important that music is sincere, and because that makes it original. It makes it sound like you really do have your heart in what you're doing, which I think is crucial. You hear so much music which is bland and obviously written for radio stations rather than written for enjoyment or anything. So I think that was important to us, that actually come across.
As Jimmy was saying, it's moods really, I think, that express themselves on various songs.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you write with that in mind as well?
No, because it's like we just write how we feel, so I mean, it depends. It obviously then depends what kind of mood we were in that day and how it affects what comes out. So I suppose material-wise, expression-wise.
Do you think it works well with the orchestral arrangements? I mean, obviously it's very sophisticated at times.
Yeah, I think I must admit, it's something I adore. I really love it. And we're sort of planning at the moment to do some work actually with an orchestra, to do some stuff, but obviously not all the time.
So are you saying that the shape of your material could take on a different shape again in the future?
We think so. I mean, we want to, on the next album, we want to be much more experimental. We want to do much more sort of like stranger sort of type of sounding songs.
It's funny, if you actually sort of say you want a record to be experimental, everyone immediately imagines you're going to have electric guitars and an awful lot of smoke and sort of huge amounts of reverb, and we're not sort of necessarily planning that, but we want to sort of use different resources. We're planning to do some sort of very sort of smartly sophisticated arrangements of various standard songs, maybe, things like that.
Orchestrated and things like that.
Your next single is not your own composition.
No.
It's going to be The Gamble and Have Not Leave This Way. Why did you choose that one?
It's just a classic, really. And I've heard a few cover versions, but I don't think they've ever been sort of like done very well. I don't think they've ever been sort of like ambitious, and I think ours has actually been quite ambitious, because I think we've actually took the song and like even made it bigger than what the original was, because even though the original was great, it was really quite slow, and it was unadventurous, sort of like musically. There wasn't really that much in it, whereas I think we've took it and we've just sort of like added everything I think which should have been in the original, like horns and all sorts of different things, and like big backup vocals and things. Because I think it is like a big. When you hear it, you just know that it should be a big sound, and I think that's why that's why I love it, and I think it's such a fab version.
We got so into it, in fact we did a remix which lasts 24 minutes.
Which is just totally changed as well, and it's got so much in it. It's amazing.
This is for the all-out and out disco freaks, is it?
It's a bit disturbing.
You're gonna have to be. It'd have to be a terminal case, really.
It's actually quite disturbing, because there's some parts of it which are just so like mayhem, really chaotic. But it's like if you're going to do like a remix of something like that, then you've just got to do something totally different.
So what's your next move?
We're just going to we're doing an Italian tour, and then we're going to do some British dates and a few French dates. Then we're going to go to New York,
We're
play
going to
there.
Berlin as well.
We're going to
and
Berlin.
Cologne, I think.
Yeah. And then I think we're going to do some Holland dates as well, in Amsterdam. And then we're going to go to New York, then we're going to go to Los Angeles. Then we're going to come back and crash out for 6 months. We're going to spend at least 6 months, well, probably 3.5. We're going to try and push for 4 to just work and do new stuff.
Where?
At home.
At home. Just so we want to get some more material together.
I didn't hear...
We don't need to go to San Moritz to work.
No, I was going to say, I didn't hear the word holiday.
Well, I've got my first holiday for a year next week. I've got 4 days off.
But we don't, I mean, the thing is, it's like we don't put ourselves under the same pressures as a lot of bands and a lot of sort of like pop bands do. Because it's like, as before, it's like we're not into the whole big machine of push, sort of like as far as you can push something. So like, even though it's like we do quite a lot of work, we do have like days off all the time.
It doesn't feel like it to me. It really
We
doesn't.
don't work, we don't sort of like get driven into the grave work-wise.
I think we've been working very hard. Of course, he's had 2 holidays.
Well, I haven't really had 2 holidays.
Toronto.
That wasn't a holiday.
What was that?
But then you had a chance to go on a holiday, but you just came home. Richard likes to moan.
Yes.
It's not true.
Don't split up, will you?
I try not to. But I want my holiday, Jimmy. In front of millions of listening people. I demand you give me my holiday.
Well, we shall go down on record that you will have your holiday. In the meantime, Jimmy, Richard, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.